And I was thinking about that as I read the passage that you heard today. And I don't know if you picked it up or not, but the resurrection thing was a surprise. They weren't expecting it. No one was expecting it. So much so that when the women and the disciples came back and said to the other disciples, "He's risen," they didn't believe it. But you can't really blame them. It never happened before. Who would expect that? Who would believe it? But today things are different. We know exactly when Easter is. There is a formula, actually two, depending on whether you're Eastern Orthodox or you're Western. But there's a formula, so you can look ahead and you can see when Easter is going to be. Quick, somebody Google Easter 2042. What day is that going to be? Siri, what day is Easter 2038?
Easter is on Sunday, April 25th, 2038.
Wow.
We can find out, right? There's a formula. Now that's an important date. Why? The 25th. It's the last day that Easter can ever be. Easter can never be April 26th or past. That's the last day it can be. Because there's a formula. Now, if you're in a hurry, you can just simply look at your calendar and see, when Easter is, and they always have the next year going, so you can look and see when next year's is. But they can always tell you, because there's a formula. There's no real surprise. Now, that seems just so foreign from the Easter event where it was a big surprise. Right? Now we know. Then it was like, what? So I think we need some new rules for Easter. You ready for some new rules? First, we need new reactions, new words. We need words bigger than surprising for Easter. So what huge, large, grandiose words can you think of that mean surprising? Astonishing. What else?
Flabbergasted.
Flabbergasted. Incredible. Shocking. Yeah, we need bigger words. We don't need that big. Yeah, okay. Resurrection, after all, is the life-saving, life-changing event in the history of the kingdom of God, and in each life that is touched by the risen Christ. Nothing is the same after you experience resurrection. So we need new words, bigger words. A second rule, you ready for this? We need to change the date of Easter every year. Okay, now I know you say, well, we do already, but I say to you, you need to think bigger. You need to think bigger. We need to change the date of Easter every year. This is how I think we should do it. Okay? We need one of those cages, the Keno cages, and we need 52 of those little Keno balls. On each one would be the date of a Sunday during the year. Okay? So, you with me so far? All right. So, on the first Sunday of Advent, we'd pull out our cage, we'd reach in and we'd pull out a ball that would tell us what Sunday Easter would be that year. Could be any day. Could be any Sunday. See now, after it's chosen, then it needs to be a secret. So no one knows when Easter is going to be that next year. No one knows. That secret would be kept until the Wednesday before Easter is to happen. So if Easter is August 20th, then on August 16th, the pastor, the choir director, music director would be told that Easter is going to be that Sunday. I think you're down here a little further. The pastor and the music director would inform only those on a need-to-know basis. Okay, so we can pitch you in. But no one can spring the secret. It could be any Sunday of the year. It could be any Sunday. Now, not only that, but this is pretty radical. Every church would have their own drawing. So we might have Easter here on a Sunday, and First Baptist might have theirs 2 months later. I mean, just think about that for a second. Somewhere, every Sunday, it's Easter somewhere. It's Easter somewhere. I mean, can you imagine that? That's exciting stuff. We'd have an Easter All Saints Day, right? Easter Reformation Sunday, and Easter Mother's Day. Oh, now this one I really like. Being Easter Christmas. Do it all in one day. Wouldn't that be exciting? That would be so cool. Easter Pentecost, Easter 4th Sunday of Kingdom Tide. And this is the best of all. And Easter. Right? Wouldn't that be exciting? Yeah. And you wouldn't know until you got to church. Now, I know some of you. There's some skeptics out here. I get that. But I tell you, it can work. It can work. Then we could use all of our big Easter words. Right? Because it would be shocking, stupendous, and everything about what Mary said. Still not convinced? Still have questions? What about all those details? Well, I got you covered. I got it figured out. Well, most of it anyway. So, big thing is the choir, right? Okay, now this is what happens. After that Sunday is picked, then the choir gets the music for Easter Sunday. And they work on it until they've got it. And then, every once in a while they kind of go over it again so that when Easter comes, they'll be ready. Not a problem. So, when the call comes out on Saturday morning to the choir that says Easter is tomorrow, then you all would gather here on Saturday afternoon and go over it and work out all the kinks. Now the trick is, you'd have to sneak here. Okay? You couldn't tell anyone you're coming. Tell your spouse you're going to Kohl's or whatever you do, and you have to sneak in and you'd practice, and then you'd be ready for the next day. Now the same thing would happen with special music. We had someone doing special music. They could pick out what they want. They could practice it throughout the year, be ready, and when Easter came, they'd get that call on Saturday and say, tomorrow's the day. It's Easter tomorrow. It's Easter tomorrow. The biggest problem, though, is you brass guys. What do we do with that? And so I have a solution for that, too. I told them earlier. We're going to put them on retainer. Now, we probably have to let them know a couple weeks in advance, so if they have any gigs booked, they can dump those gigs. But it can work out. And the good part is, there's like 20 or 30 Easters that you can be playing out throughout the year. I mean, that's cool. I mean, now as it is, you got to pick only one church. That way you get lots to choose from. For all those Easter egg packers and hiders, there need to be a plan, right? But I know the education committee is up to it. And I'll just leave it in their hands. They can handle that. They can handle our children every Sunday. They can handle that. Don't you think it would be exciting to wake up every Sunday morning wondering if it was going to be Easter or not? Come to church not knowing. Sleep in. What do you mean? It might be Easter. Oh, there's one more detail. That is, on Easter, church would be at 2 p.m. Okay? Now, you may be wondering why. Anybody wondering why? Yeah, I thought so. Well, if we go back to the gospel reading, this one and the others, we find that at that Easter event, there was a lot of running going on. The women and the two disciples, when they saw the tomb was empty, they ran off and told their disciples, their friends, that he was risen. He is risen. Come and see. Come and see. Well, we need to live that too. So, this is what would happen on surprise Easter Sunday. Ready? Make sure you know this. This is important. You would arrive at church at your usual worship time. You'll be greeted at the door and asked, "Who are you seeking?" And you will say, "Jesus." Yeah. And the greeter will say, "He is not here, he is risen." And immediately that will be your clue. You will run off like the women, the disciples, and tell everyone you know he is risen. It's Easter. Meet me at church at 2. And bring your big words. Easter is big. And it deserves big words, and it deserves the great surprise of new life. Little children may understand Easter better than we do. They get up on Easter morning and they run down the stairs excited to find a miracle, or at least a basket filled with chocolate, which looks a lot like a miracle. Then during the Easter egg hunt, they run to find the biggest, the best, the most. See, part of the Easter story is that without running, or at least a running heart, there is no Easter. Without running, or at least a running spirit to God, the message dies. Resurrection always comes as a surprise. John Killinger spoke of a resurrection Easter experience that he had in his church. He said, "I remember the Easter day when several street folk, scruffy and poorly dressed, came up to me in my white robes in the forecourt after the last service and asked if it was all right for them to enter the church." Imagine what a pastor might think. He said, "I directed them inside, and I returned to greet the people remaining in the forecourt. When I didn't see them emerge from the church after a few minutes, I stepped inside to check on them." Because that's what pastors do. "And I saw them standing around in the huge sanctuary with the suspicious nature born of having things. I suggested to a custodian that he keep an eye on them, and I went back outside. When all the members and visitors had departed, I stepped back into the sanctuary. At first," he said, "I didn't see any of them. And I walked down the aisle, and then I noticed there they all were, kneeling in front of the chancel, all in prayer." He said, "I stood there, breathless for a moment, watching. Tears formed in my eyes. I had never seen anything so beautiful. When at last they began to look up, I walked among them and asked if they would like me as the pastor to pray for them, for us all. They said yes, and I knelt among them, shepherd the new flock, my hand on the shoulders of 2 of them, and I prayed the most heartfelt prayer I had prayed that day." Easter doesn't come as expected. This first-year seminary student in a Catholic seminary, the dean came up to him and said, "Tomorrow you're going to preach a sermon in the chapel." Now, he'd never preached a sermon before, but he stayed up all night working on it, and morning came and there was just no sermon there. So he got up in front of all of his classmates at the chapel, and he said, "Do you know what I'm going to say today?" They all shook their head no. And he said, "Neither do I. Chapel's over. Go in peace." Well, as you can imagine, the dean was not happy. He said, "I'll give you another chance tomorrow, and you better have a sermon." So again, he stayed up all night, wrestled with it, but nothing came. And so he stood in the pulpit in front of his classmates and said, "Do you know what I'm going to say?" Students all nodded their head, yes. "Then there's no reason to tell you," he said. "Chapel over. Go in peace." Well, the dean was now angry. He said, "I'll give you one more chance. If you don't have a sermon tomorrow, you'll be asked to leave the seminary." So again, he worked on it, trying to find a sermon. And in the morning, there was no sermon. So again, he found himself in the pulpit, and he said to them, "Do you know what I'm going to say?" Half of them said yes, and half said no. So the student preacher announced, "Those who know tell those who don't." Service is ended. Go in peace. Seminary dean walked over to him, put his arm around his shoulder, and he repeated those words. "Those who know tell those who don't. Today the gospel has been proclaimed." Those who know tell those who don't. Blessed Easter. Blessed Easter. Now, as we remember the great resurrection experience that brings